We are talking waiver wire targets and trade targets for Dynasty contenders on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Dynasty is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick between 2 and 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, Pittsburgh Steelers got a big win.
Yeah, I warned some people the second half of the season might be better than the first. I'm still standing by it. Pickett has some work to do, but it was nice to get Mr. Watt back in the picture, and New Orleans isn't very good.
Yeah, that Watt guy makes a little bit of a difference for sure. So nice win for the Steelers. Matt, it is Tuesday. We're talking dynasty transactions. Let's get some waiver wire targets out of the way first. There's not a ton, but let's start at the quarterback position. It's weird to talk about this guy as a waiver wire target because he's kind of been a stalwart on dynasty rosters for years. Matt Ryan. Of course, Matt Ryan got benched by the Colts a few weeks ago, and with all the changes that their team has undergone, really even over just the past couple of weeks, including the hiring of Jeff Saturday as their new head coach, Matt Ryan was a surprise start Sunday morning. They had even said going into the weekend that Ellinger would continue to start, but Matt Ryan got the start. Finished as a quarterback one, had a rushing touchdown, had a 40-yard rush. It was a weird game for the Colts.
Yeah.
What's your take on this whole Colts team and the situation there? And most notably, I guess for dynasty managers, is Jonathan Taylor looks like he's back.
I think so. I mean, I think with Saturday taking over, or even just the fact that Taylor's finally healthy, he's going to be a top 5 back the rest of the way. I absolutely believe that. I think installing Ryan back in made a lot of sense. He's a professional quarterback. Is he close to being washed? Yeah, probably. But they did a really good job of getting the ball out of his hands quick. Guys like Paris Campbell after the catch. I will say, I mean, we're all really hard on the Saturday decision, and I was as well. I don't know how much he's even involved. Is he game planning at this point? Probably not. I mean, he's probably just a figurehead, and the same coaches are basically running things. I know there's a new offensive coordinator. But a big takeaway for me is the Raiders defense might be the worst in the league. I mean, let's not forget that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was your take coming out of that Steelers game. You mentioned that the Saints are maybe just a bad team. Mm-hmm. That might be the ultimate takeaway for this Raiders-Colts game as well, that the Raiders just are among the worst teams in the league as well. A couple running backs, a couple young guys to keep our eye on. If you're in deeper dynasty leagues, you've already had your eye on these guys, but maybe still out there. Kyron Williams, we saw him make his debut, or I guess his return. I think he got a snap or two in the season.
Speaking of bad football teams.
Oh man.
Yeah, the Rams are dismal.
Rams are in trouble. I could definitely see them just kind of packing it in, especially with injuries to Stafford, injuries to Cooper Kupp as well. The backfield honestly has been terrible all season. Cam Akers has not been the answer. Darrell Henderson, not the answer. They've tried a couple other guys. I don't really think Kyron Williams is the answer either. They see him as more of a pass catcher. He's not a lead back or an every down back type of player. But in those deeper dynasty leagues, you got to take a shot on some of these young and somewhat unknown players. Another one, and this is an interesting story that came out late yesterday, Matt. Keontae Ingram is the target here. Cardinals rookie running back. Saw him serve as backup to James Conner on Sunday. And then Monday comes and the Cardinals announced they are releasing Eno Benjamin, who had been playing well earlier in the season. We even heard maybe some reports that Benjamin could take that job away from James Conner, which I didn't really believe that. But nonetheless, Eno Benjamin's gone. Keontae Ingram is a stash and a waiver wire target. And I'm wondering where Benjamin lands because I think he belongs on an NFL roster.
Yeah, and when we're recording this, maybe there's more to that story. Is it a legal thing, a medical thing, personality thing with Eno? But I would imagine he'll get scooped up pretty quick. There's, running backs are going down left and right, of course. You can always grab another one. I love the Ingram pickup, though. I mean, and there's a chance he's not, in your leagues. I think he's a facsimile of Connor or what they want at that position. Decent receiver, big-bodied guy. I think he's a good player. He's been impressive. So I absolutely want him. I'd give a fair amount of my remaining money to go get Ingram.
Some wide receivers to look at. Ben Skowronek in Los Angeles, of course, the Rams' third guy, or I guess third and fourth. He's kind of shared that role with Van Jefferson since he came back. Cooper Kupp suffered that injury on Sunday. And again, this Rams team is bad. I think they're 3-6 now, I believe. I don't know. Maybe they just pack it in. As I said, Stafford is hurt. A concussion. We assume he'll be back soon. But
that elbow's leaning with him too. I mean, I think the Rams pack it in. But I do think Skowronek could do a very, very light version of the Cooper Kupp role. I mean, he blocks, line him up the backfield, things like that. Somebody has to catch passes there. I mean, if you're in a pinch.
Yeah, that's kind of the theory in Tennessee as well. Nick Westbrook-Akine caught a couple touchdowns on Sunday. I felt like we talked about this guy every waiver show we did last season, and here we are again. Robert Woods has just done nothing. Honestly, I think Robert Woods is a roster clogger at this point.
Yeah,
the Titans did get Treylon Burks back, so hopefully he can become that true number one target. Until then, Westbrook-Akine is worth a look. And Isaiah Hodgins, this one's an interesting one. He was cut by the Bills last week, I believe, claimed by the New York Giants, and basically served as their wide receiver 3, playing behind Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. The Giants have tried every wide receiver in the league this year, it seems like, in some type of rotation, and Isaiah Hodgins is the next one in line. That is a target for the deepest of deep leagues. And a couple tight ends. These guys are probably gone. They've been their names have been out there for a little bit in different ways. Foster Moreau of the Raiders, of course, the Raiders placed Darren Waller on the IR, so Foster Moreau is going to get his shot over the next month, and Juwan Johnson continues to play well for the Saints. If you are in a shallow dynasty league, maybe you had Darren Waller, you need some tight end help, both of those guys are targets, Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson. Matt, when we come back, we are talking trade targets for dynasty contenders. I can't wait to hear who you have.
Prize Picks, folks. I've told you often about Prize Picks. I am a big fan. I love that you don't have to play against others that might just get lucky. It's just you against the number. And this is how it works. You pick between 2 and 5 players, and all you have to see is will they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection. Pick whoever you want. You win up to 10 times your money on any of your entries. No competing against other people. As I mentioned, that's my favorite part about just you versus the projections. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. Of course, NFL, which I hit the hardest. The other ones aren't up my alley as much, but I still do some hockey. There's golf. There's Major League Baseball, NBA. WNBA, esports, boxing, disc golf, cricket, Euro basketball, anything you can imagine. Entries are done in no time, 60 seconds or less, super easy, safe and fast with withdrawals, which isn't always the case with some of these situations. Currently operational in over 30 states, as well as in Canada. So download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive up to 100% instant deposit match, up to $100 with promo code Locked On. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks give you $100. If you deposit 50, they'll give you 50. So don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. So I also wanted to tell you about Simply Safe. This is interesting, especially this time of year, that you probably didn't know this, and I didn't think twice about it until I read this, but over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries, all the packages that are sitting by your front door when you're not home, all those thefts and burglaries, they spike nationally. So that's why our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season and all year round, of course. Order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. I mean, we have pets here. We have valuables like anybody else. I also have 2 teenagers. Who knows who they're letting in my house and what's going on when I'm not around. So Simply Safe is perfect for us, and that makes a ton of sense. They were named the best home security system of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report. That's the 3rd year in a row they got that honor. Well deserved. So in an emergency, they have 24/7 professional monitor agents that use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so that you can get priority police response. 24/7 professional monitoring costs less than $1 a day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. So don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL today. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Matt, I wanted to spend some time today and this week really talking about dynasty trade targets, because in my leagues, we've got our trade deadline coming up. I don't know how your leagues are. I know this has become one of those things that varies greatly from league to league, and a lot of leagues don't even use the trade deadline anymore, which is kind of appealing to me as well. But my leagues have been around a while. We still use the trade deadline, and it's week 11. It's this week at kickoff of the Sunday game. So I've got some contending teams in some of those leagues, and this has kind of been on my mind. And I think we're going to have a lot of our listeners in the same position. Hopefully you are as well, Matt, where you've got a contending team, but maybe you've got some holes. You've got some spots where you could improve. You need some players to push you over that finish line, get you to the playoffs, and hopefully get you a league title. So we want to try to look at a couple of players at each of the 4 fantasy positions. And of course, we'll start at the quarterback spot. And by the way, Matt, I don't think I mentioned this. I'm kind of I'm kind of cheap here. I'm looking in the bargain bin, right? I don't want to spend a lot. I don't want to give up my 2023 first rounder. We know how valuable those are. I'm not trying to flip starter for starter in most cases. I just need that plug and play piece that can, like I said, can help me get to the playoffs. Maybe cost me a second rounder or something like that. So we're going cheap here.
Real quick, you gave me this assignment via text, and I think I'm going even cheaper than you. I mean,
that's all right.
You've targeted a little bit of youth, a little bit of upside. I kind of looked at it like, if I can call up my buddy that has 2 wins this year and get a roster clogger off his roster, on the cheap, and it's somebody I might need in a pinch, that's the direction I'm going to go.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Quarterback, Geno Smith for me. I mean, we know the story here that Smith has been better than anyone expected he would be for the Seattle Seahawks. 22 fantasy points per game over the past month. He's the quarterback 7 on the season. The only thing that has me hesitating on Geno Smith just a little bit, as far as the final weeks of the fantasy season, even into the fantasy playoffs, Seattle's got a little bit of a tough schedule in those 3 weeks. Typically, it is going to be weeks 15, 16, 17 in most leagues. They've got some tough matchups there. And we know that Seattle wants to lean on Kenneth Walker. That's how they've had some success in recent weeks, at least up until Sunday when their running game kind of got shut down. But looking at the DLF Dynasty Trade Finder, some recent trades that are very fair. I would make these types of deals. Mike Gesicki in a 3rd rounder for Geno Smith. And these are all in Superflex Dynasty leagues, of course. James Robinson, even up for Geno Smith. I think that's an absolute steal.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
then I think this is going to be the deal that you see a lot, a 2nd rounder for Geno Smith. And like you said, if there's that team in your league, he or she's in 10th, 11th, 12th place. I mean, we're still not necessarily looking at Geno as a long-term dynasty asset. So if somebody's struggling, if they're not going to make the playoffs and they can get a 2nd rounder, I think that's a deal that we're going to see made a lot in Dynasty Superflex leagues.
100% agree. Or maybe they stumbled into Justin Fields or, something like that too,
right.
That's young or somebody that they're happy with or going to roll with Lawrence or, just picked up Geno off the waiver wire before the season started, I have some similar names. I think Jared Goff is similar in that is he going to be a starter next year? I don't know, but he's putting up points. Kirk Cousins, people probably look at it and say he is what he is. Am I moving on from him? He's probably a little more expensive. Everybody hates Russell Wilson, but he kind of showed signs of life. But my favorite one is a lot like Geno, Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
We know that he's going to be a starter next year. I mean, if I'm a Jones and Fields owner or even Jones and Pickett or somebody like that, maybe I dump him while his stock's high enough that I can get something in return.
Definitely like the Cousins call. I agree with you. He's going to be a little more expensive than some of those other names we mentioned, especially if you're talking Superflex. I think he probably cost you a 1st rounder.
Yeah.
I'm not going that high. I'm not paying that much for him, but you find the right matchup in your league where a team wants to move on from that veteran quarterback. Absolutely love it. I'm good with Daniel Jones as well. And Russell Wilson. I know I can't figure out what's happening there.
That one's Russell Wilson question mark here on my sheet. The other ones don't have the question mark.
He gets a few question marks.
Yeah. I just figured his owner will hate him by now.
Let's move over to the running back running back group. This one's for me going to be a little bit of a challenge, especially after week 10. But trade target I like here is Rachaad White, the rookie from Tampa Bay. He has steadily been taking over the Buccaneers backfield. That's at least been the report. We kind of saw it on Sunday. White played 48 of 75 snaps. Leonard Fournette played just 22. Fournette, it is worth noting, Fournette had that hip injury late in the game, so that definitely affected that snap count. But White started the game, was first running back on the field, and really just felt like he had more juice when you're watching that game. He was the one.
Oh, he's the better player right now.
Right. He was the one getting the 4 yards when they needed it. So he's, like I said, he's going to be more expensive, especially after past couple weeks. Some trades, again, from the trade finder, Wan'Dale Robinson and Juwan Johnson for Rachaad White. If you could get that done, I would love it, even though Wan'Dale's my guy. And Elijah Mitchell and Kyron Williams, both for Rachaad White. I would make that.
That's an easy one.
Well,
easy one. Once again, I've got.
Who do you got at running back?
I got a flurry of names. Zeke Elliott. I mean, I don't care if Pollard's better and you think Pollard's better. If Jerry Jones disagrees with us, he's going to be fantasy relevant. I bet you could get him cheap off a rebuilding team. How about both Miami running backs, Mostert and or Wilson? I could see people thinking they're roster cloggers or short-term fixes. Let's sell them while I can. Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
They love him. I mean, I don't think he's a long-term answer. Cordarrelle Patterson. I mean, he's not young. He's still productive. And then this one's a little different than the rest in that Breece Hall's still going to be back. But if you own Michael Carter, he might get me through the season on a pretty decent team, a good football player, still young.
Jets have one of the best running back schedules or remaining schedules for fantasy running backs. So I really like the Michael Carter call. I like all the veterans you mentioned as well. I think you could probably get each of those guys for a second rounder. Maybe if you even find the right team, maybe you get a couple of them for a second and a third, something like that.
Makes sense.
All of those guys can you can plug into your starting lineup, and maybe. Ironically enough, it might be Zeke Elliott, who is the one that you are a little uncertain about versus the others. Wilson, Patterson, those guys feel like locked in starters for fantasy teams down the stretch. Matt, when we come back, we'll quickly talk about the pass catchers, receivers, and tight ends.
Can we pause the pod for a second? Okay, we're paused, right? Great, because you got to try this, and I'm talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors. Built Bar has been a tremendous friend of the Locked On Network, but now they have cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper. I'm excited to try these. White chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar, so it's more filling, but it's still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie puff. Built puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're honestly the best tasting protein bars ever built. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it. 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories, 130 calories. I mentioned I have teenagers. I have a 16-year-old that's lifting every day. The second the Built Bars show up, they just vanish. I'm not kidding. There will be a time before you try these new Built flavors and a magical time afterwards. You're probably wondering which new flavor is my favorite. Unanswerable question, to say the least, mostly because my son just devours them before I even get my hands on them. They're all unbelievable, and they're all different, so you can order a mixed box and try all 5 flavors by yourself. Built, you got to try this, and here's what you do. You get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's LOCKEDON15 at Built.com.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Matt, we spent too much time talking quarterbacks. Let's talk about these wide receivers. I went the same route as I did for my running back. I went with a young guy who's not necessarily going to be cheap, but he might help you for the long term. Rondale Moore is my guy here. He has posted 4 top 24 games over the past 6 weeks. And over that stretch, he's the wide receiver 12. He's a top 12 wide receiver over the past 6 games. Love Rondale Moore. They're finally using him in what feels like the right way, focused on that slot, targeting him down the field a little bit more, still pretty low ADOT, but giving him something he can work with. And a second rounder is the target here. Flip a second rounder for Rondale Moore. There was one other trade I liked that was kind of moving down. Rondale Moore and a first rounder for DeAndre Hopkins. So moving from Hopkins to his teammate Rondale Moore and picking up a first rounder is a deal I would love to get.
Yeah, I can
wide
see
receivers.
That.
Who you got?
I'll be honest. I was very proud of my pile of quarterbacks and running backs. I don't even have a tight end, and I don't even like these receiver options that much. But these are the names I came up with. Jarvis Landry, yuck. But, man, I mean, the Saints are really hurting for a third weapon besides Kamara and Olave. I mean, that's a cheap throwaway type of deal. An upgraded version of that might be Tyler Boyd. I don't know how much longer Chase is out, but I'm sure the Boyd's owner are going, I got to get rid of this guy while I still can. Mac Hollins, I mean, that's a rough one too, but someone has to catch passes there. If you're a contender, though, I'm sure you have somebody better to start than these options.
Oh, I hope so.
You would hope
I
so.
do like I like the Tyler Boyd call.
Okay.
We did hear we heard reports on Monday that Jamar Chase is still on crutches.
Yeah.
It felt like an odd move when he got hurt not to place him on IR. A lot of people question that. It does seem like he is going to miss at least the 4 games that would have would have gone along with an IR stint. So that's it's kind of a weird situation.
Mm-hmm. I also
Boyd,
said
I like.
Brandon Cooks is the other one I threw out.
Yeah,
that's an odd one to invest in. It is. That's the weirdest.
Yeah, I mean he could be a healthy scratch the rest of the season.
Right. I mean,
just because
he's stuck in Houston the rest of the year, unfortunately. So maybe that's not a good one. But I would think the Cooks owner wouldn't mind moving on from him.
A couple of others, Darius Slayton. We mentioned that name earlier.
Yeah,
he has emerged as the wide receiver 1 in New York for the Giants. Tyler Lockett is always cheaper than he should be. Jacoby Myers, same thing. Amari Cooper is.
I was going to say Cooper, but I thought he might be a first. That's why I didn't throw him out there.
I don't think you'd have to spend a first, but more than a second, less than a first kind of situation.
Okay.
Let's finish it up. I've got a tight end target, Dalton Schultz. Matt, Schultz has played 3 games without Dak Prescott this year. In those games, he is averaging 1.3 fantasy points per game. In the 4 games he has played with, it is laughable. The 4 games he's played with Dak, he's averaging 13.5 fantasy points, literally averaging 10 times the fantasy production with Dak versus without. Feels like, especially after that Sunday game against the Packers, feels like Dak is still trying to get back in the groove.
A little bit.
But I mean, outside of CeeDee Lamb, they just don't have a reliable wide receiver target. Michael Gallup has been slow to return as well. Jalen Tolbert looks like a bust. Noah Brown was a nice story for a while, but he's kind of taken a step back. Schultz is their clear second option, and he's going to be locked in fantasy lineups for the rest of the season. You can get him or Jaylen Warren or Romeo Doubs. Based on the trade finder, I would easily do both of those deals. You giving Jaylen Warren for Dalton Schultz?
In that situation, yes. I have 2 little things to add. Would Odell going to Dallas screw you up on him at all?
I don't think so. I mean,
he's still middle of the field.
I was wrong when OBJ was in the situation earlier, kind of just writing him off a little too early. So I hope he proves me wrong once again, because he's a fun player to cheer for, but I'm just not sure he can make an impact this year.
Mm-hmm. I actually did come up with 2 tight ends. Curious what you think of them. These guys are on the cheap, sort of along the Tyler Boyd line, Hayden Hurst and Evan Ingram. I think Evan Ingram's played better than his fantasy production has translated to.
Yeah, I'm good with both of those. I mean, the thing with tight ends, they're all going to be pretty cheap outside of those top 2 or 3. So it almost becomes a DFS style, play the weekly matchups situation. And in this case, when you're looking ahead to the playoffs, you want to play the matchups over a 3-week stretch. So go ahead and start looking at those schedules for the last few weeks of the regular season and get ready for your playoffs. That is going to do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL, and I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time when we're Locked On Dynasty.